Hello and welcome. It is All for United. We are back for the final match of the 23-24 season, and it is, of course, going to be an absolute doozy. It's a Manchester derby taking place in the capital of the country. And so we thought to ourselves, rather than just dragging in a City fan like we'd sometimes try and do, we've hit gold. Look at what we've managed to do here. Can you believe it? He's here. And no, I'm not talking about this fine young gentleman just below me. The boss. Look at that. He does exist on the men's channel. It's indeed. It's the quick quaff man, bigger than your stand. The Elon Musk of AFU. Connor.
Oh, that was going so well until you mentioned Elon Musk, and I was like, oh no, maybe not. But yeah, no, it's been a while. I feel like I've been doing my hours though on the women's channel and the other obviously women's channel that we've got. We've got 3 now. I'm putting the work in. I feel like across all other platforms, but no, you two are doing really good stuff over here. So no, it's good to be up because I've been saying, what did I say to you at the start of the year? I'll do one a month, and we're now in May, and this is my first one.
Currently, that's 4 after this. So there we go. But then, of course, who else did we manage to get? Well, here he is, the star of Stretford Paddock, one of a journalist, nearly at 750,000 subscribers. So get yourself over there and click on it if you haven't already. If you're not following Stretford Paddock, what are you doing with your life? A lifelong United fan, an all-round legend, Mr. J. Motty. Thanks for joining us, mate. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, man. I'm just privileged to be alongside the award-winning legend that is Connor Roberts, because listen, I've been in this YouTube game for a long time, right? I've been doing this for about since the days of Fergie, and I've never won an award for YouTubing. And my man here has smashed it. Do you know what I mean? So this is a career high point for me. I know, especially seeing as it's one of his only appearances on the channel all year as well. It's like the stars have aligned. I'm very grateful.
Especially because we didn't even, this is really kind of off top, but like even the last 2 Paddock appearances that me and Jess had, you weren't even on that one either. So
do you know what? I was so annoyed with myself, yeah, because I can't remember what it was, but I saw you just after you'd left, and we bumped into each other.
Outside the coffee shop,
yeah. But you were saying you've got that was ahead of the cup final, wasn't it? And you saying it's worse because you expected to win, but they won, so it was good news all around. Really,
we broke the Paddock curse because me and Jess were adamant if we'd have lost that, we weren't coming back on again.
And I wouldn't have blamed you. Even if you'd have won, you probably won't come back on anyway.
Just depends on if you can get him off of TikTok, to be honest with you. But you might manage it. And Jarvis, of course, coming in and saying Stretford Paddock is mint. It absolutely is. And John, he is a fellow Urmston lad like you, but he lives in Florida now. Didn't like that.
Right, yeah. I used to live in Urmston. I went to Urmston Grammar School, but I've moved to Eccles now. So I'm over in the M30, but Urmston at heart, M41 at heart. If you're not from either of them areas, you don't know what I'm on about. Don't worry.
There you go. Well, we just thought that actually, because we've had you on, Jay, it'd be nice if you could just give us a little bit about yourself to begin with, just so that any of our regular sort of listeners, if they haven't managed to come across you in your content just yet, just a little bit about yourself, how you got into working with Paddock, and of course, how you started your love affair with Man United.
Yeah, in terms of my love affair with Manchester United, I was very fortunate in the sense that I grew up, before I lived in Urmston, I lived in Stretford. I lived around the corner from Old Trafford. One of my earliest memories as a kid. I know this sounds a bit schmaltzy and cliche, but it's true. Was the roar of the crowd from Old Trafford. You could hear it from our house, because when I used to go to the games, I used to walk to the games. My dad used to take me as a big red. So I didn't really have a choice. I was a United fan, whether I liked it or not. Fortunately for me, when I got to, I think, 7 years old, someone called Sir Alex Ferguson, who was known then, took over Manchester United. So the next 26 and a half years weren't too shabby being a Manchester United fan. As I grew up, we won the lot, and I was treated to some amazing football. So, I was very, very lucky. Love Manchester United. I was a journalist for many years, and then I used to do a United blog when blogging was the big thing. And I went to quite a lot of games and had a bit of a social media presence. So someone asked me if I fancied jumping on a video, like a Skype call to do a video, back when Skype was still the main platform if you wanted to do video calls. to do like a screen test for something called Full Time Devils. I remember they said to me, like, this is going to be a United fan channel. We're going to put you on with other United fans. We'll just ask you to do one thing. When we do this, if you don't agree with what someone said, can you argue with them? We want you to argue as much as possible. Now, anyone who knows me knows I'm not shy of arguing with someone about Manchester United. So that was like, I was like a kid in a sweet shop. So I think before we even started, I started arguing. And they were like, right, okay, yeah. Do you want to come back on? Did it for a little while I was reporting. Then I went full-time on Full Time Devils as a sort of content producer. And then just when we got into lockdown, me, Stephen Howson, Adam McCullough and Joe Smith, who'd all been presenting on the channel and contributing to the channel, we bought it. Social Chain owned it. We bought it off them. And then we changed the name to Stretford Paddock, and it's been Stretford Paddock ever since. And as you said there, we're up to about 750,000 subscribers. Had a great time. I've very, very fortunate. Got to do some things as a Manchester United fan I thought I'd never do. Interviewing legends like both as a reporter and as Stretford Paddock. So Alex Ferguson, Wayne Rooney, Andy Cole. I know I'm name dropping. Forgive me. I'm working with people like Connor when our paths cross. Working with my friends, going on the tour, covering the tour. Hopefully, I think we're going to do that again this year. So it's just been a great journey, man. It's been a great experience. And even though United have been pretty terrible since I ever got involved with YouTube, I had 6 months when I first went on Full Time Devils when Fergie was still the manager, where we were still winning matches and we won the title. And since then, it's been a bit up and down, and more down than up, to say the least. It's been a great experience. It really has. And I feel very lucky that, I get to spend my days talking about Manchester United Football Club.
No, absolutely, 100%. So thank you very much for that. And Jarvis saying, I believe you got to introduce Fields. I didn't forget. No, we all know who he is. I'm not going to keep throwing him out there, but we all know he's there. So it's all good. And who's it here? Yes, indeed. He is. The Quiffmaster is here on the United Men's channel. It has happened. It's a wonderful thing. We can't wait. It's going to be great. So there we go. Right. Well, it's almost time to get straight into the FA Cup preview and almost time to talk to Dan. But just before we do, I'm going to ask these two one last question. We're not going to ask Dan because that's our show next week, so it would be a little bit silly. We're going to be talking about the goal of the season, player of the year, all of that sort of thing. But obviously, the Manchester United ones have just come out. Garnacho, unsurprisingly, I think, got goal of the season. Bruno was the Samat Busby player of the year, and Diogo Dalot chosen by the players. So Connor, we'll let you go on first, and then Jay, if you could just follow on. But yeah, those choices, quite happy with those. Would you say that Bruno and Diogo have been the two best, and that Garnacho's pretty damn fantastic overhead kick was a winner?
Oh yeah, the goal of the season really, that wasn't even contest. There's a few other good things. There's been some other good goals throughout the season, but that was not even a contest, was it? As soon as that hit the back of the net, that was our goal of the season right there. Players, yeah, I mean that's the thing. There's not been too many standouts as there throughout the season. Dalot's been probably one of the better. The thing with Dalot, when he's good, he's very good. When he dips, it's very obvious. But I think that's obviously not helped by the fact we've had such a changed back line throughout the whole season. The back four has been all over the place consistently. So that has been consistent. Bruno, yeah. I don't think there's many other shouts. That's the problem, isn't there? You could put... I'm trying to think of players you could probably put there, but they've not played enough. I actually think Evans has been quite good when he's played. He's come in for his age and everything else. I think he's been good, but not player of the year, player of the season worthy, I don't think. I'm struggling really. Mainoo's been good, but he's kind of been in and out of form in the last kind of few months as well. Not been as good as he was in other moments. So, and then the forward line. I mean, I'd struggle to pick anyone in that forward line that's been consistent over the season. So, yeah, me personally, I couldn't even find an alternative. I don't think that's been consistent over a season.
Go along with that, Jay?
Yeah, I think Connor nailed it. I think every option for player of the year is slightly flawed, but I think Bruno, I love Bruno. I think he's been our best signing post Alex Ferguson by a country mile. And I think he's had a decent season as well. I think any other player that you sort of throw into that mix, I think Delot's been good. And I know he's won an award too, but when you start sort of looking at other players, the ones that Connor's mentioned, Mainoo missed sort of the first half of the season almost. Johnny Evans hasn't played, but again, I agree, when he has played, he's done well. Hoyland's had some very good games, scored goals in sort of patches in the Champions League, then in January and February, but hasn't consistently scored throughout the season. He did go, I think, 14 league games or something without a goal, so it's a bit of a stretch to say he's player of the season, even though I do think he'll do much better next season. So it just sort of sums up the season we've had, really. You know, it's been a good season where there's 4 or 5 players that everyone's arguing about on Twitter or amongst your group chats or whatever, saying, "Oh, I can't believe Marcus hasn't got a shout," or "Can't believe, Casemiro hasn't got a shout," or "Martinez hasn't got a shout." Whereas this season, it's like, yeah, it does feel like Bruno and Dalot are probably the most consistent performers. And then the other ones, as we mentioned, have been slightly more flawed because of the lack of game time, or they've had little dips or whatever. So, yeah, it's just where we're at. I get a little bit annoyed, me. I was saying this before I was chatting to someone. I know it's petty and it doesn't even really matter, but when your right back's one of your best players, I just think, really? The players that Manchester United have got and the way we were sort of brought up, you should have strikers and wingers and attackers and midfielders vying for that. When you're looking at it going, well, yeah, Dalot's been all right. I suppose he's, one of our best players. It kind of sums up where we're at. That's not having a dig at Diogo Dalot. It's just, it's a bit deflating to me that we're not having a conversation about more of the attackers. But we know why we're not, because a lot of them have struggled for goals, and that's what attackers get judged on.
It's like, I think Box just said it in the comments, it's like when De Gea kept winning player of the year. You're struggling in games if your keeper is consistently player of the season, because that just means you're always on the back foot, because they're always under pressure and having to bail you out, basically. So, yeah, it's a fair point.
Do you remember when Jose gave Scott McTominay an award that he created? Like during the award ceremony, when he sent someone out to go and get a vase or something to give Scott McTominay, because he was annoyed that like his goalkeeper yet again was getting player of the year and he didn't like that, so he wanted another player to get an award. Yeah, it feels a little bit like that. It's a good point, because it's like, okay.
Very true. Full name Huggy saying, don't forget he did make some big mistakes today that cost us early on with goals, but once he got that dumb red card, which was a really stupid one, but twice in a minute, he actually started playing well, and he was very good.
Can I just pick up on that though? I felt I get the point about Dalot making mistakes and switching off, because he has. I like Diogo Dalot, but there's been a couple of times. I think the Bournemouth game, and was it Copenhagen? I want to say, unless I'm getting it mixed up with another game, but in Europe, I do feel that one though. Anfield was Michael Oliver lost the plot, because players do that all the time. And if you actually watch what Dalot does, he snaps, and as he's sort of finished snapping, he gets a second yellow. It's not like he snaps and then snaps again. I know this sounds really sort of convoluted, but he snaps and he's still in the process of that initial rage when Michael Oliver's already given him a second yellow. If you actually VAR it almost with frame by frame, you can see he's on the way down of calming himself down when he gets a second yellow. And plus, after that game, because I hate Michael Oliver, I think he's a terrible referee. I was watching so many games where players did much worse than Diogo Dalot and didn't get a second yellow, where they'd kick off, they'd get in the ref's face. John McGinn at Villa, a couple of weeks later, went berserk. He lost the plot. He was fuming, he was raging, he was in the ref's face, and he didn't get 2 yellows. And then there was a Newcastle game where 3 or 4 players were doing it, and again, didn't happen. Someone in the comments there, Nunes. So that was the annoying thing for me, was it wasn't consistent, and I thought Dalot was sort of calming himself down. The first yellow I got, because he did snap, and if you snap and you say things to ref, you shouldn't. We all know it's dissent, it's yellow, fine. But it was one instance that he got 2 yellows for. It wasn't 2. And also, I think other players have done much worse and escaped punishment. So for me, that was Michael Oliver, who I think acted a little bit unprofessionally, got annoyed with Dalot because of the way Dalot had acted. And rather than being professional, going, well, it's only yellow, snapped himself and then gave him a second yellow. And then I think there's a reason why you haven't seen that happen again.
I mean, you're not wrong. This was the one that wound me up, absolutely. Literally a week or two after that, Michael Oliver allowed Erling Haaland to literally scream in his face and absolutely nothing, whereas Dalot's screams were from at least 10 metres away. So that was strange. And as it moves us into the game, Michael Oliver's on the VAR team for the final. So what could possibly go wrong, says John, the guy who ensured City won their semi-final. So that is going to be interesting. Jarvis mentioning Kieran McKenna. We might get to that later on, but we are going to move into the cup final because that's what this show is all about. And I mean, poor Dan, he's sat there now for 15 minutes. He's barely said a word, which is roughly how long it would take for a Stu Woody answer anyway. So he's quite used to that by now. But Dan, first of all, lovely to have you back with us. My right-hand man on the left-hand side, as ever. But some team news being given by Ten Hag in his press conference earlier today. No Harry Maguire, no Luke Shaw. Yeah, amazingly, both are apparently going away with the Euros, so that's great news. Obviously, no Malacia either, so we've still got no fullback on the left-hand side. We're looking at Dalot or Wan-Bissaka to fill in over there again. But Lindelof could be back along with Mount and Anthony Martial. So give us a little bit of a shout. What do you reckon for the team to be starting this game? Because the other option is, of course, does Martial start and Højlund come off the bench? He scored 2 in 2 off the bench so far. What do you reckon? What's your thoughts on the cup final team? How do we beat those nasty City teams?
I think he'll pick the same team that he's picked for the last 2 weeks. Dalot has to be left back for me. If we put Wan-Bissaka at left back, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to watch it. It's just going to be mad because he's been absolutely rinsed at left back, so we can't put him there. Martial shouldn't start for me because he needs to come off the bench and score a 90th minute winner. So we're going to keep him on the bench. But no, I think he'll go pretty much as what we've seen already. I'm wondering if he's going to play Casemiro at centre back again. I genuinely don't know if that's what he's going to do with Amrabat in front because it seemed to have worked. I personally wouldn't. I'd make a choice between one or the other and then go from there. But who's fit centre back wise then? Is it going to be Varane and Evans?
I think Martinez has played, hasn't he, last game?
Martinez is back.
Yeah, so I'd imagine it may
be fit.
Varane and Leacher then maybe, which on paper is a lot better than what we've seen. I'm gutted that Maguire's missing this final. Absolutely gutted. I've so wanted to see the trophy lift and an header from a corner or something. So it's really frustrating that he's missing it.
You can always go full John Terry and then come running on with his kit on.
Oh, I'd pay to see that. I'd actually pay to see that. No, it's just going to be tough. I think it's going to be an interesting lineup, whatever he picks. The tactics are going to be interesting. We've got to remember that when we played City early in the season, we actually played quite well and we kept the ball quite well for 70 minutes. We just couldn't get a goal. So I definitely think he's going to set up in a way. I'm just hoping Ahmad starts because he's looked the best player we've got at the minute at linking things together, obviously other than Fernandes, in terms of the front three. So I would definitely start with Ahmad. It's just a massive selection in it. It's going to be a massive game. Can't wait, but I can also worried at the same time.
Understandable for sure. Connor, obviously from the City side of it, there's no Edison, but that's not really a problem for them because he's not been their cup goalkeeper anyway. Other than that, clean bill of health. So it's just all going quite well for City at the moment. But surely, everybody thought we weren't going to go on to beat Liverpool, and we managed to pull one out of the bag. What do you reckon? Can you see us doing it? And if so, which players would you be choosing? If I can't believe I'm about to say this, but if you were Ten Hag, and obviously you didn't have that magnificent quiff, who would you be picking?
I was going to say I need less air tonight to be anywhere in resemblance of Ten Hag. I really don't know. I think I'm going to ignore the question about the backline because I just don't know. Like as I said earlier on, we've not had a consistent backline. Obviously, Martinez being back for the last game was obviously important. Having him back in there, obviously, as people have already pointed out, the Casemiro centre back, no one's really been a fan of. But it's just like, what other options have we got? Varane, and obviously, it's kind of been in and out. Maguire's been in and out. Evans been in and out. We've seen Cam Wild, but in and out as well. Like we've never had like consistency there. So I genuinely don't know. I think it's got to try and be balanced. If it's going to be Casemiro there again, it's got to be Amrabat and Mainu in front. I was listening to the guys on the overlap talking about this earlier on, and they're talking about whether we just pat the midfield out and go for that kind of, split striker almost with, I don't know who it would be, whether it be Højlund and Garnacho or Højlund and Rashford or Ahmad or whoever that would be. I really don't know. It's a case of like, do we just go for it and just try and beat them? Or do we worry too much about what they're trying to do and try and stop them and try and nick something in the game? Dan referenced the game a bit earlier on in the season. Obviously, away at the Etihad, it was all right. And our standards are not very high at the moment, right? So us saying we're being all right is nicking a goal, trying to defend for most of the game and win it like that. But weirdly, I'm more confident playing City than I ever have been playing Liverpool. I feel like we play better against City than we do against like a Liverpool or anything like that. So, as Jarvis said there, like, the kind of the 4-3-2, I think that's probably what he'll go for. With kind of Fernandes, Amrabat, Mainu, and one other, whether that's McTominay or what. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's that backline that just worries me because it's just been all over the place. I've been critical of Onana at the start of the season, but I actually think he's made some really good saves towards the back end of the season. So, yeah, I don't even know if that answered your question because I don't know. Like it's very similar to, we've obviously spoke about Sparrow a lot. The seasons have been, the women's and the men's side have been very parallel in terms of the league form has been just dreadful and all over the place. But we turn up in the cups, like in the FA Cup, and I'm hoping that's what happens again this weekend. That somehow we pull some crazy result out of it. We're capable of doing it. You go back through the season, the players and the team have played well in moments. It's just not been consistent enough over a full 90. The problem is when you play a team like City, you've got to be consistent over a 90.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting that you said that, though, about feeling like we play better against City than others, because I felt that as well. We obviously had that 6-3 that didn't go too well. But I looked over the last 10 games that we've played, and it wasn't ideal. We only won 2, drawn 1, lost 7. So it's bizarre because, like you say, they've been fairly tight, those games. Jay, feel free to weigh in on what you think about the defence, but what do you see going forward? Because, as I said to Dan, Højlund scored 2 in 2 off the bench now. Is it perhaps best that we bring him on in that sort of sense? And if so, do you go for the sentimental value of potentially giving Martial a last appearance? What would you tend to go for there?
Listen, I think it would be madness to start Anthony Martial in this game. He's barely played all season. He looks disinterested when he does play. And I've stuck up for Martial many times over the years, but I think we need to be realistic. I think he's already checked out, to be honest with you. And I don't think it's one of those where you can afford to be sentimental against Manchester City and give a player who's done next to nothing over the last 3 seasons some sort of send-off at Wembley. The reason I'm not too keen on leaving Højlund on the bench is because I think I was sort of talking about this on Paddock the other day. Sometimes when you've got penalties and you'll save your best penalties taker to the 5th penalty and you get knocked out before you get to the 5th penalty. I feel like that's what would happen if you left Højlund on the bench. He'd be coming on and would be 3-0 down and the game would be done. And you'd be thinking, why did we do that? We should have started him. You need him for more than just goals. You need him to hold the ball up. Martial ain't going to do that. You need him to cause problems for City's defence. I know he's done well off the bench recently, but look at the opponent, look who he's going to be up against this weekend. I think you have to play your best players. I would start Diallo. I agree with that. I think he's looked good the last few weeks. He's got a bit of confidence. He's got a bit of momentum, and I think you need to tap into that. When you've got players who've got momentum, use them. For me, if push comes to shove, and I've sort of changed my mind a couple of times on this, I'd probably start with Marcus over Garnacho, just because I think Garnacho as well off the bench offers you something. He did it last season in the cup final. When he came on, he was very good. And when he came on at Old Trafford against City, he was very good as well. He turned the game around. They couldn't handle him. And everyone got distracted with that Bruno Fernandes goal that wasn't offside. But people almost ignored the fact that a then 18-year-old had come on and absolutely tore apart City's defence. So I wouldn't mind it though if I love Marcus, but if he was on the bench, I get it because I think he could cause problems as well and give you something to think about. If you're a City defender and he comes on for the last half hour, whatever. But I'd go probably the front three of Marcus, Højlund, and Diallo, and then at least you've got the option of Garnacho as well. Defensively, I mean, I'm guessing Martinez is going to be fit. He's played. Someone in the chat was saying he might not be fit for the full 90, but I think you've got to take that chance. And I don't know if is Varane fit as well. Would this be a swan song for him? Not a bad game if he can help us get a result to be a swan song. But I agree with what everyone else has said as well about sort of Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, and a few people said it in the chat. I think you have to put Dalot at left back and Wan-Bissaka at right back. The Wan-Bissaka at left back, I think he did all right against Liverpool, but other than that, he's struggled. He really has. And I think you can't afford that against Manchester City. It's a shame we haven't got Luke Shaw back for this game because we really need him. But it is what it is, isn't it? And I agree with what Dan said as well about Harry Maguire. He gets a lot of stick, Harry Maguire, but I think he'd be a good player to have in this game. I really do. And it's a shame he's not fit because we're going into this game missing so many players that we could do with. And City have got a goalkeeper on the injury list who wouldn't even play anyway. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
That's the part of it that's quite unlucky, really, isn't it? But
you could say it's you could say it's something to do with Pep's doctors, but I wouldn't say that because I wouldn't want to get sued.
Allegedly.
Exactly. I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying some people may say that. Yeah.
I'll say it. I'm not worried about it. They can come. I've got no money whatsoever. So
right. Just to clear that up, if you're suing us, sue Barry individually, not the channel, please. I don't want any letters coming my way.
I'll put it on Twitter. I'm very 27 now. All opinions of my own. Of course they are. Dan, talk to me a little bit about Rashford, because obviously I mentioned earlier Maguire and Shaw not available for this game, but amazingly, Gareth Southgate picks them. Marcus Rashford has been available for a lot of the season, but granted, hasn't hit the heights of the previous season. Ten Hag says he'll use this as fuel. Do you agree with that? And could you see this being almost like prior to the last City game? He obviously did the interview and then came out and scored an absolute banger. Can you see this being a similar sort of bit of fuel for him going forward?
He's got to use it as fuel more than anything else. Like, I don't think anybody's really surprised he's been dropped by England. I've heard a lot of people say that he was Southgate's favourite, and I just don't see it. He's at the last tournament, he left him on the bench for ages and then brought him on with 3 minutes to go to take a penalty or whatever. He's got to use it as fuel. I don't know whether I'd start him, but obviously every week I say we need to rest Garnacho, and when he's not rested him up to the final, so I don't think he'll rest him now. I think Rashford's got something to prove, so hopefully he can prove it in the final. I just sort of still think he's been over criticised past the normal levels of criticism, and he's got to respond. He's got to take confidence from what Maguire did and come out fighting and show people that he is the player that we pay him to be, and he is a Manchester lad, and he wants what's best for the club. It's up to Ten Hag to motivate him as well, but he's got to do it himself. There's no bigger chance than this final coming up to show exactly what Marcus Rashford is all about. Like, the annoying thing for me is some people would be disappointed if he scored the winner, which is absolute madness. I'm hoping he comes on and bangs in a hat-trick, or he starts and bangs in a hat-trick. It would just be interesting to see what tactics Ten Hag go for in terms of Rashford starting. I think we might see, it's going to sound mental to say out loud, I think we might see Fernandes and McTominay as a sort of front two attacking midfield, like the 4-2-2-2 that Jarvis said. I genuinely think he might go that way to sort of stifle City. The longer we stay in the game, the more nervous they become. Then maybe we could bring on a Rashford, make a few changes, bring on a Højlund, make it a bit more difficult for them. It's worked over the last few weeks. I just hope Rashford turns up. I really do. I think he owes the fans, to be honest, to turn up as well as himself.
No, it's a fair point. Do you know, it's interesting though, Dan, because you mentioned him coming on to do a hat-trick. Dave's mentioned Martial coming into a hat trick. Anyone know when the last hat trick we scored against Manchester City was, and who scored it?
Was it Kinchelskis?
Yes. This is why this guy's paid the big bucks. That's what he does. None of this dallying about like you two part time and straight in. Kanchelskis, 1994.
I'd imagine I was about 4 at the time.
Stop trying to find excuses, Dan. Nobody likes excuses.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember they had a kid in that. City had a keeper called Simon Tracy. He got him on loan off Sheffield United. He was in goal, right? And he had a good game, man. He saved a lot of shots. You know, one of them ones where it could have been 8 or 9 if it weren't for him. And after the game, Brian Orton threw him under the bus and said, the lad's come in and he's not had the best of games, to be fair to him. And I thought, Jesus wept. He's kept you. He stops it being 10-0.
Absolutely. Maybe Dan. Maybe you should get Jay to do your quiz.
That's the City game. That's the City team I miss. Brian Orton as manager, Simon Tracy in goal. Getting battered every week, getting relegated eventually. That was all happy days.
You know more about the City there than most City fans do themselves.
That's true. I was watching it before 2008, so you're right.
They genuinely were atrocious. Genuinely were. Connor, another thing that Ten Hag has mentioned in his press conference today, he literally kicks off with, it's all about the trophies, which I think we know at United. That's pretty much been something that we've aimed for ever since Fergie took over. That was exactly what we wanted to do, was to catch up with Liverpool. He mentioned it's 2 in 2 years. I'm coming to you with this question because it seems like an obvious question, but we've obviously lived through Mark Skinner winning an FA Cup as well. And as we said, the men's and the women's team really have had a parallel. Now, I know that from your point of view and mine, to be fair, we didn't necessarily think that an FA Cup win for the women covered over the whole season. It was very much papering over the cracks, or in terms of Rachel Williams scoring, plastering over the cracks for now. But what do you reckon on this one? I mean, 8th, it's our worst Premier League finish, but an FA Cup and 2 trophies in 2 years would be quite a thing. Does it cover up the cracks for you? Is it enough? What do you reckon?
Oh, such a tough question. I've made my thoughts on Ten Hag pretty public, and I've not changed from that. I said it last season, even when we won the Carabao. I feel for him in some respects. Obviously, the injuries we've had this season, and it just seems to be that the media only care when Liverpool get injuries, and when United have had them all season, it doesn't really matter. However, there's things I look at with him, and I'm just, I don't know. I'm not a UEFA licensed coach, am I? So I don't know what goes inside their head when they're thinking about putting these teams together and the setups for games. Does it pay for it? No, because ultimately, as I said, you can get through a cup run with a favourable draw and make your way to the final. Obviously, we have had to beat Liverpool on the run there. But let's not forget Coventry in the semi-final. That was we got through, but I don't think there was many United fans that were like, oh, like what a win. Like we got through to the final. It was very much like, oh, we just got through there. Like, thank everything for that. So no, it doesn't paper over the cracks because like I said, a cup runs 6-7 games at most for some teams. A league's 38. So that's where you judge a season. And I don't like the fact that, there's nothing really to play for in the league. You just throw it and things like that. Well, no, there's still pride to play for. There's still points to pick up and things like that. So it doesn't change my opinions on Ten Hag. The issue I've got with the whole Ten Hag conversation is it's like, we've seen it this week, and I know we don't particularly want to go down this route of conversation, but like there's all managers just getting linked all over the place. Oh, it's Tuchel, oh, it's McKenna, oh, it's this person, it's this, but like, and it's just because I agree with Dan tweeted, it's just because it's the week of the final. Like all this is coming out just to try and disrupt something at United and so on. So no, it shouldn't make a difference. I would hope United have got an idea before the final, as United women's side did. They offered Mark Skinner a new contract before they'd even played the final. That's what they should be doing with Ten Hag. He should know already whether he's here next season or not, regardless. It shouldn't be down just to one game because you could get unlucky in that game. You might have a dodgy penalty given against you. You lose that. Like anything can happen in a one-off final. So no, it shouldn't make a difference. I fear that it might do a little bit. But no, not for me. It doesn't pay for the league's been atrocious. Some of the games we've watched seem to finish with a minus goal difference as well. It's just like how do you manage that over a 38-game season and finish in the top half? It's baffling to me.
maybe I can cheer you up a little bit, Connor, because if you go back over the last 192 games that we've played against Manchester City, we do have a positive goal difference. We've scored 273 and conceded 272. So we best win the game, or at least draw. Otherwise, that's going to disappear. And we have won more games than them. 78 we won in that time, but lost 61 and drawn 53, which is quite a hefty whack on that one. Jay, I'm going to ask you a question. I know you covered this a little bit on your paddock show last night, but obviously the rumours came out from DiMarzio, I think it was, saying that Ten Hag was going to be basically Van Hold after the FA Cup, regardless of what happens, and that it looks like we'll be getting somebody else in. I've seen a couple of rumours, as we've already mentioned. McKenna's been mentioned earlier on by Jarvis. That the really big rumour that I'm hearing at the moment is that maybe it could be De Zerbi, and that we've paid the 4.3 million that it's going to be to get him in. I can't quantify that, but that's been heard, and my ears went, that's interesting. Can't find anywhere that actually backs that up at the moment, though. What he did say didn't quash it. He just said, I don't really have anything to say about that, but I will focus on the game and then continue the project. What do you reckon on this one? Do you see Ten Hag staying going? And from what we just said with Connor there, do you think that an FA Cup win is enough for him to earn, a bit like Skinner, another year to see what he can do under a new management structure?
I've been asked this quite a lot over the last few weeks, and I've sort of said the same thing all the time, really. If it was up to me, I probably would give Ten Hag more time, but I don't think he'll get it. And I don't think the FA Cup will make a difference. I feel like with Dan Ashworth coming in eventually, I feel like with Omar Brada coming in and Jason Wilcox already here, I can't imagine they're coming into this role or their roles and they're saying to Brailsford or Sir Jim Ratcliffe, whatever, just stick with this manager. Just keep things the same. I think that one of the first things they're going to say is, let's change the manager, because I don't feel like Ten Hag has done enough this season to convince everyone. You might have some fans like myself who say, you know what, injuries or whatever, or can't keep changing managers, let's give him more time. But I just think when you look at the results we've had, the fact you finished 8th, the fact that, as someone's pointed out there, you're on a minus goal difference. And also, with the likes of Brailsford, with the likes of Wilcox, with the likes of Jean-Claude Blanc, I think, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they're in the ground. They're at these stadiums. They're watching these games. They're hearing the reaction of the fans. And I know the fans, by and large, get behind the team, but they don't always, they make the feelings heard when things are going wrong. You can't help but hear it when, even some substitutions have been there when they've been getting booed. That's going to have a little bit of an effect where you're thinking, this guy is losing everyone. He's losing games and he's losing the crowd. And, we've paid 1.3 billion or whatever to take part of this club and to have control of the footballing department. Are we really going to keep this guy in charge? I think he'll go. Of the names that have been mentioned, you mentioned De Zerbi. I think he's a good manager. Would I want him at Manchester United? Not really. I think his sort of star has dimmed a little bit post-Christmas. I think if you look at Brighton's results, I think they've won 2 of the last 12 or something, is it? Something like that. Is that the kind of... I know it's not just about that, but it's not like he's in a great bit of form and then he's coming into the United job on the back of that. So he's not really for me, if I'm being honest. He's also... his track record, he does tend to move around quite a lot, and he's not won out, despite playing good football and doing well and being a young manager who's quite popular. He's still yet to win a trophy. McKenna, who has won something, he's won 2 promotions with Ipswich and obviously knows Manchester United. It's a big gamble. If I had the choice out of them 2, I'd prefer McKenna, if I'm honest, just because I think that potentially he could be an elite manager. I just don't think I think it's a bit soon to be giving it him, if I'm being brutally honest. And then the other names, Tuchel, certainly got the pedigree, certainly got the trophies, certainly got the experience, won a Champions League with Chelsea, can't ignore that, won title with PSG, won a German Cup with Dortmund, and obviously won the Bundesliga last season, but they just finished 3rd by Munich. Again, he's not coming in to United. If he did get the United job, he's not coming in on the back of a successful spell. They won the Bundesliga on the last day of the season last season, basically because Dortmund threw it away. And then he's come third this season. So none of them really inspire me, the suggestions. And don't get me started on the likes of Potter or Southgate, because we'll be here all night.
I had absolutely zero intention of bringing those up, but Dave, you know I love you. But Pochettino, it sounds like something I'd order at Starbucks.
I forgot about him. It's a good point. I forgot to mention him. But he wasn't the right guy 2 years ago, so he's certainly not the right guy now.
No, I agree. Absolutely that. It's one of those tricky ones, but I think what NT just put out, I think, is really quite telling. He said, how is that none of us can name a single manager at the moment that's definitely the right candidate to replace Ten Hag? I know the fan base will disagree, but the options are just so underwhelming. And, I mean, I agree with that. But also, the last time I think anybody was sure as to who it was they wanted to take over the Man United job after Ranić, Ten Hag was the guy, which might be another reason to just hold fire and give him another season. Right, we're nearing the end of the City part of it, but I kind of want to know now what you guys think about the game. So, Dan, we've lost the last 3 games we've played against City, so that's me trying to cheer you up. And Bruno and Rashford were the only 2 players to score in those 3 games since January 23, where we did win the game 2-1 with Bruno and Rashford scoring the goals. So, I just see this the level that we try and go for here. Dan, are we going to win the game? Can you see us on Saturday? And it's important because I'm going to a barbecue and I want to make sure that I'm watching the right stuff while that's going on. You know, I'm either going to be drinking myself, you know, sad, or I'm going to be going absolutely mad. And you know what I'm like when that happens? You could be getting some pretty good text messages. What do you reckon? What's happening this Saturday?
I'm going to refuse to answer this question on the basis that the last 2 weeks I've predicted us to lose, and we've gone on to win. So I don't feel like I should predict us to lose against City because I don't want to get beat up. Do you know what? It's going to be a tough game, and if we're going to win, City are going to have a bit of an off day, and we're going to be absolutely at it to do that. I'm hoping they've partied a little bit too much over the weekend and they're all a little bit groggy come the weekend. But we just need every player to turn up and minimum run for the badge, give everything for the badge. I genuinely think that how this final goes will have a massive impact on Ten Hag's future. If we see players running for the badge and it's a good game and they give absolutely everything and it's a close game and they've left everything on the pitch, I think you could argue that he deserves more time. If we see a team go out and look unprepared, get cut through constantly like we've seen a lot this season, then the chances are that we're not going to see him for the rest of the season. Well, next season. I think we can do it, to be honest. I genuinely think we're going to have a big performance on Saturday. I believe we've got it in us. I want to say we're going to win it in extra time.
I mean, that would be different. Rory, you were in contention for comment of the night there. That did make me smile. I just got my ticket. I'm sitting with the City fans, both of them. Very good. But then Box came in with a late equaliser. Easy United wins 27-26 on pens, which I thought was equally just as good. So, well done. Keep sending the comments in. If one of you can get a second good one in, we'll pick that. Connor, we've only ever played one cup final against Manchester City, and that was last season where we lost 2-1. We have played them, and yes, I am going to count these, in 2 Charity Shield wins, 1956 and 2011. One at Main Road, which seemed a bit odd, and one, of course, at Wembley. Is this going to be our first proper cup win against Manchester City, or are you going to let down your legions of fans by predicting otherwise?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know, because it's like the United fan in me is like, yeah, we could do something here, we can nick this and everything else. The realistic side of me is like, there's just no way. But I said that against Liverpool. Yeah, it really depends. If that team shows up against Liverpool, yeah, there's a really good chance. If the team that shows up in the second half, later on in the game against Coventry, then we're in a bit of trouble. What's NT saying? Shall I be positive and go for a narrow 3-1 defeat? I don't know. No, I really don't know. Like, because nothing this season, apart from the Liverpool game, has like filled me with confidence that we could beat them. I'm trying to think of a big win we've had this season that's not the Liverpool game. Villa, I guess you could count that as, a big win. Like, obviously Arsenal, it's City and Liverpool in the league. No. So that's what I mean. There's not a lot to base off, is there? I agree with Dan. We've got a chance. Like I said, I feel more confident playing City than I ever do playing Liverpool. So in that respect, yeah. And to be fair, I hate to go back to previous managers, but under Ollie, we did play well against City. We had a very, very good record. So that's maybe skewing my positivity a little bit against City, because as you mentioned, in recent years. Although we did have the win, the 2-1 win at Old Trafford. So yeah, we can beat them. We can, and I think Dan makes a good point with the occasion, and like if we see players really going for it, then yeah, what's he put? We're not keeping a clean sheet. Like, there's just no way. So if we're going to win, we're going to have to outscore them. And if Rashford's on form, people know my thoughts on Rashford. I've probably given him the most criticism on the channel. He can do it. You saw his goal at the Etihad. Like, he can be that player. Hoyland, when he's on it, can be that player. Garnacho, as Jay mentioned earlier, Ahmad's coming to it at form, confidence into the game. We've got scorers in the team, and obviously Bruno speaks for himself. So, yeah, we can beat. I'm not going to put a score on it, but we can beat them if we have one of those games that just go our way a little bit. And you need a bit of luck, don't you? You need a little bit of luck in the final to go your way. So hopefully we're on the right side of it. The one thing I will say, we just cannot do what we did last year and go down in the first 40 seconds. We do that again, you may as well just go home early, because I don't think we'd be coming back from that mentally again.
Well, there we go, folks. You've heard it here first. If they score very, very early, just go home. And just imagine if you'd have done that in 1999, Connor, what a time you'd have had. Simon has said our big win. He's a City fan, everybody, so don't get too upset with him. He's quite nice, really. Our big win is the new owners. He thinks history's going to repeat itself, and City are going to win. Whereas Huggy has said he's going 3-2 with French Tony and a 118th minute winner. I'll tell you what, if he did that, that would be amazing. And Swilumber, positive as ever. So well done, sir. Andrew's gone. If it gives us any hope, United won 5 of the last 7 FA Cup games against City, but those 2 defeats did come at Wembley. And
it's got to be the worst attempt at cheering somebody up I've ever heard.
You know what I mean? He did really well until he went, yeah, but the 2 defeats did happen at Wembley. Andrew, just don't sell me that bit. Just say there's only been 2 defeats. But of course, he writes for Paddock, so of course he's going to be a decent writer when it comes to that. Jay, I went into the 192 games that we've played, not the 115. That's a very different subject. We are on a 40.6. Do you like that one, boys? Yeah, 40.65% win ratio. Are we going to creep it back up towards the 50%? Because we've had a hell of a lot of draws. Can you see is penalties the best we can hope for? Or do you deep down see, I don't know, a Rashford banger?
The weird thing is, right, it's easy to be dismissive of this team and our chances. And I've been as dismissive and as pessimistic as anyone. But if you look throughout the team, there's quality there. There's a lot of quality players. Like, for me, Kobbie Mainoo is an excellent midfielder. Varane is a very good defender. Ditto Lisandro Martinez. Marcus Rashford scored a goal at the Etihad that few players could have scored. Like, I know he's not on form, and I know that there's a lot of inconsistency, but a lot of these players are excellent. The trouble is they're just so inconsistent, and more often than not, they haven't turned up this season. But if they did turn up, I don't think it's beyond the capabilities of this team to beat City. That's what I'm getting at. I don't think some teams can't win a game of football. There's some teams where, do you know when you went into that last game against West Ham, City versus West Ham? And I remember chatting to an Arsenal fan, and he's like, and I said, West Ham cannot beat City. It won't happen. And you can't blame David Moyes for that. You can't blame, they haven't got the players to do it. Manchester City have just got a far better team than West Ham. And if City turn up, there's nothing West Ham can do about it. I actually think if United turn up, even if City do and we do, it'll be a close game because I think we have got real quality. The problem we've got is that we've been massively, massively underperforming this season. Every single player, bar maybe Bruno and perhaps the low, has underperformed this season at one stage or another. So we can win this game. It's not like we're incapable. Of course we can. We can beat City in a cup final. I know it's different. But this team, if we turn up, we turned up for that second half at Old Trafford and we beat them. They didn't stop trying. They didn't give up. We beat them because when we were on it, they couldn't handle it. So whilst I'm still pretty doubtful, I'm gonna get carried away. I'm gonna think back to that 4-3 against Liverpool. That happened for a reason. That didn't happen just to spoil Klopp's farewell tour. That happened for a reason. That VAR call against Coventry happened for a reason. And the reason was Manchester United's name is on that trophy, I'm telling you. So I agree with Connor. There's no way we're keeping a clean sheet. Let's not get too silly. But I'll go, I think someone said 3-2 in the chat. I'll go with that, 3-2.
Like, Andrew, that's how you cheer people up and give them an opportunity. That was Fergie-esque. You know, your hands. Just imagine what it's going to be like walking past the trophy and not being able to touch it. John's gone 3-2 as well. So there we go.
Can I just say, though, I'm going to be one of those guys that Connor spoke about leaving Wembley after 5 minutes when we're 2-0 down. I'm going to be like, yeah, fuck this.
I do not believe you for 1 second. Yes. He's almost convinced me, says Huggy. Yes, very good. Very good. There's an election coming up. Maybe you should go for that. You're very convincing. Right, couple of quick questions for you all now as we draw ourselves to the end. And the first question I've got to ask is there anybody on this panel who wants to try and convince me that you can get relegated like Vincent Kompany and then get given a job at Bayern Munich? Yes, absolutely. I can't. I'm gobsmacked. Can anyone want to go to bat for Kompany?
I think it's weird. Isn't it? No one seems to want that job. Like some of the people that have been linked with it, you think that'd be a good job for you. That'd be a big move and a good move, and they've turned it down. And I think Kompany gets credit, which is weird, for sticking to his guns with his style of football, despite the fact it's not worked. And I think they might have looked at that and go, okay, the style of football is there. So if you give him the players, then maybe it can do something. I still think it's a weird appointment. I really do. I mean, Vincent Kompany as a manager, he was at Anderlecht, wasn't it, to start? Was it Anderlecht to start with? And I don't think he did much there, unless I'm mistaken. Forgive me if I'm. Obviously got Burnley promoted, but they were never looking like staying up this season. The only way Burnley looked like staying up this season is if Forest and Everton got enough points deducted. That was the only way you saw Burnley staying up. And then to get off the back of a relegation with Burnley, when you haven't really got that much of a pedigree as a manager anyway, you get one of the biggest jobs in football. That is weird to me. I'm sorry, it just is.
It is. Just imagine going for a job interview, so how did you get on in your last job? Well, I completely tanked the company. It's gone bankrupt. Excellent. In you come. Do
you remember when Bayern Munich were moaning about Pep Guardiola saying he weren't any good because he won 3 titles in 3 years and they didn't get past the semi-finals in the Champions League? And they were glad to see the back of him. Do you remember? And they were like, well, he was a disaster. Glad he's gone. God, should have got rid of him before he arrived. And now they're going for Kompany who's just got Burnley relegated. I don't know what's going on there. It's just weird for me. To me, it's weird.
It is. I completely agree. But NT he's gone in for a comment of the night. I dropped a piece of toast once and landed butter side up. So anything is possible. Good point. Good point well made. Can't argue with that. It's not a logic we like on this channel. This next one, right? I think it is one that you are all going to fall on the right side of, but it's genuinely blowing my mind, and I'm a little bit annoyed about it. So I wanted to ask some sensible people, but in the absence of them, you three will have to do. What I am going for is this: now that Pep's won a treble and he's just won 4 in a row and he's the sweetheart of everything, people are genuinely trying to tell me that he's the best manager of all time, genuinely giving it that Pep is the best. I will still argue that Ferguson is the best manager that has been seen to walk the earth. Pep v Fergie, who wins? Dan.
Fergie, all day long. It's not even close.
Connor?
Yeah, it's no. Like, yes, I don't have anything to add. It's not even a he can put you trophies. You know, I'm sure when Pep finishes his career, he's going to end up with more trophies and overall. But no.
And Jay?
You got to look at the differences between the two managers, right? Pep took over at Barcelona in 2008. They'd just been to a Champions League semi-final. 2 years before, they were the champions of Europe. He went in at Bayern Munich. They had back-to-back Champions League finals, including winning it. He took over at Manchester City. They'd won 2 of the last 4 titles, and 3 months before he got there, had been in a Champions League semi-final. He's never built anything from scratch. Sir Alex Ferguson took over an Aberdeen side, and to this day, he's the last manager to beat Real Madrid in a European final. That was 40 years ago. No one's done it since. He's still the last guy to do it, and he left Scotland in 1986. Like, he comes to United. We haven't won a title since 1967, and he wins 13. The guy is a genius who creates from nothing. He built the entire team when we won that title. Not one of those starting 11s was a player he inherited in 1993. He'd either brought them through the academy or he bought them. He created that entire team, and then 20 years later, he was still winning titles with another team he'd built from scratch. Like, Pep's never done that. He's never going to do that, is it? He's never going to go to a club that hasn't won a title in 20 years. He's never going to go to a club that's not won a European trophy for 2 decades or whatever, or 3 decades. That's not going to happen for him. He's only ever, if he leaves City, goes to another successful club where everything's in place and he inherits a great team that's been successful, and he'll carry on there. So, for me, it's I get why people like to do it, but Pep Guardiola could win another 20 titles at City, and he still won't match Fergie because Fergie did it from scratch. Pep Guardiola has inherited one of the best teams in Europe everywhere he's gone. People act like when he got to Barcelona, they were rubbish. We played Barcelona in 2008. Well, you all remember that game. They were mint. They were. We only just got past them. And they'd won the Champions League in 2006 under Rijkaard, let's not forget. He took over at Bayern Munich. They got beat off Chelsea in the final in 2012. Then they won it against Dortmund in 2013. He gets there. They don't get to another Champions League final under him. He goes in at City. City got to their first ever Champions League semi-final 3 months before he arrived. So it's not like he's going to teams and like, this team's rubbish and he's turned it around. Well, how's he managed that? He's going to the team that is one of the best in the world. Now, admittedly, he's done very well there and he's took them to different levels or whatnot. But this whole idea that Pep's a genius and he's different to Fergie, he's better than Fergie, it's nonsense. I guarantee you, right? I know we'll never know, but there's no way on God's green earth you could drop Pep Guardiola into Aberdeen in the late 70s and he breaks the stranglehold of Rangers and Celtic and beats Real Madrid in a final. It just doesn't happen, does it? So it's an argument that people like to have, but the one thing that they'll never be able to convince me of is that Pep can build things from scratch because he's never done that and he's never going to do that. Fergie did it at Aberdeen and he did it at United. And when that team got too old, he did it again. And when that team was getting old, he did it again. He built 3 great United sides and he built 1 great Aberdeen side. Still, as well in Aberdeen, the last team other than Rangers and Celtic to win the title there. And again, he left there nearly 40 years ago. It's just different class.
You see, I've had this argument literally all week with City fans. It stresses me out. Pep has basically been able to go into Man City with unlimited funds. It's not even just about unlimited funds. So he signed a goalkeeper that didn't work. He was replaced within 6 months. They got another goalkeeper. Signed a left back that didn't work. They signed a new left back. He signed 2 centre backs. They didn't work. He signed 2 more new centre backs. He signed a right back that didn't work. Then he signed another right back. He's literally had the choice of, well, I can replace that player instantly if it doesn't work out. I said it will piss people off. He's not better than Klopp as a manager. Never mind Fergie. He wouldn't be able to do what Klopp's done at Liverpool, but Klopp could go and do what Pep did at City with ease. It's just, honestly, it's so frustrating for me. And people don't understand what you mean. They'll say, well, what do you mean? Everybody spends money. But not like that. We're still getting rid of players from 6 years ago because we can't get them off the books. City have got them long gone and bought in an £80 million replacement in that time. You've got £100 million Jack Grealish on the bench doing absolutely nothing, and then an £80 million Doku coming off the bench and doing things while spending 90 million on a centre back that's playing at left back. It's just it's madness. He's got no record of improving players or teams. You could argue he's improved Foden, but he's one of them players that was always on an upward trajectory anyway. It's not a discussion for me. It's not close. He's already saying that he will probably leave next season because he's getting tired. He ain't got the longevity to do what Fergie did. Nobody has.
He's getting tired. He's getting tired, is he? I think there's 115 other reasons why he might leave next season.
Well, I read somewhere today that a lot of Man City employees are applying for United jobs. Don't know how true it is, but it was definitely on the BBC or something like that.
If Erling Haaland wants to apply for a United job, he can have one.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And my final question is, there's been lots of talk about the future and players that we might need to bring in. The big name that I keep seeing people asking for us to get is Elise. And I just wanted to ask, because I can remember this same conversation sort of happening a few years back with a certain Wilfried Zaha. We brought him in and not a huge amount managed to happen. So very simply, round the panel, we'll go Dan, Connor, and then Jay can finish us off with that. Elise, yes or no? Is he Zaha Mark 2 or is he Elise Mark 1?
I don't know, I would say yes, as long as we move some other wingers out first. But if we're not going to do that, then no, because we need to strengthen in other areas first. We've got loads of wingers that are either going to work or not work. So it's entirely what the club do. If we move some wingers off, then yeah, I would take him. It sounds like the transfer fee is not going to be too large, and it also sounds like he's really interested in the move, more so because he was a United fan when he was a kid, than that he wants a huge pay packet. So yes, for those reasons, but we need to move players out first.
Condog?
It has got, like you said, obviously with Zaha, it's got a bit of that, hasn't it? Kind of written all over it. I mean, he's a top player and he's a top player. I still stand by the fact until we get the stability, this is going to sound weird, the stability of the club sorted, we could buy most players and I think they would struggle. So that's the big priority for me over actual player signings, although that is what we need. I think we need to get the stability and the structure of the club sorted first, which obviously we are in the process of doing. Yeah, I'd take it. It depends what it's going to cost, isn't it? Because it's going to be ridiculously high. But I can't lie to you, that's not an area I look at and go, that's a priority. There's other areas of the pitch I look at and go, we need better there first.
No, I agree. Simon's just weighed in on the Pep conversation. Hang on a second. Pep's maintained a high level within all contests for many seasons, and if we're having it right at this level, that's a quality manager. And I don't think anybody's disagreeing with you, Simon. What we're saying is he didn't build it. There's a difference between building it and then maintaining it, or just being given it and being able to maintain it. I think is where we're going with that one. And Jay, what's your thoughts on Elise?
I like him. I think he's a good player. I mean, his injury record this season isn't great. I think overall it's not too bad. And I think United, if we can get him, that might be a sort of shrewd move because I know he probably cost quite a bit, but he's 22, I think. And I think we need to start looking at players like that who've got a little bit of experience but are still quite young. Because if we're going to go for like the 24, 25-year-olds, like if Elise, for example, went to Villa and had 3 years there, and then we tried to get him, he'd probably be, if he did well, 120 million or whatever. I think if we can get him now for a reasonable fee, I wouldn't be against that. I think he's done very well this season. I'm a little bit wary that he's in that zone at the minute where everything's going right for him, and it's like, is that how he is, or is he just having a little bit of a purple patch? But I think he's a really good player, and not just because of what he did against us. I've been impressed with him. His injury record is the only thing that gives me a slight pause for thought. It's just, I get what Connor's saying about getting players off the books. We've got 4 or 5 attackers we need to move on, really. I like Palestra. I don't think he's got it. Anthony's been a disaster. Jadon Sancho, even if Eric Ten Hag goes, I don't see him playing for Manchester United again. Mason Greenwood, for obvious reasons, I don't think he's going to play for Manchester United again. Anthony Martial's leaving. There's 5, I think, that are probably either need to get moved on or are going to get moved on. And I think if you can do that, then you're going to need others to come in. And I'd have a Lise, I would.
Well, that sounds absolutely about right to me, and I'd agree. I think Lise does sound like a better player than I think Zaha would have been back in the day. Last little bits, we've had some brilliant things thrown ever since we mentioned the Kompany going to Bayern Munich job. Box decided to come in with Paul Heckingbottom linked to the Barcelona job. Chris Wilder, the new PSG manager, both of which I thought were very, very good. And then this came in, apparently Wayne Rooney's in talks to become Plymouth's new manager, and I thought that was a gag, and then I was like, no, that's Andrew, he won't be joking. So there we go, that's true. Could be on his way there. Simon's asked us all, would we take Pep at United? Yes or no? Hands up for yes. Anybody going yes there? Didn't think so.
Look, I'd have took Pep at United in 2013, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not saying, the thing is, like, two things can be true. Pep Guardiola can be an amazing manager, and he can be not as good as Sir Alex Ferguson. That's my argument. I wouldn't say Pep's a bad manager.
No, Pep couldn't come into Manchester United now and fix us. He couldn't get what he needs from the board. He just wouldn't get. He wouldn't get to. I've signed a left back. It's not worked out. I spent 60 million. I need a different one, because the club would go, absolutely not. You've signed him. You make it work. Whereas this is why I'm saying Klopp would be able to do that, because he would make it work with the players, or he would play a youth player instead. Pep doesn't do that. He gets a new, fresh thing in the club now. In 2013, we could have done that because we were signing players for 100 million willy-nilly. But now we're at a position where we're going to either have to start trusting youth or signing much better and selling better. And I don't think that's a Pep Guardiola trait.
Absolutely. John's kind of with Frank Lampard's. I hope he does. I really hope he does, because I don't like the fact.
Wouldn't that be ace? That'd be so good, wouldn't it? I'd love that. That'd be hilarious.
Right. Chelsea could drop back underneath us again, which has been like the only thing keeping me going. And we're going to finish the show today with some of the Box put up a little bit earlier on. He said, if I had to pick a Manchester United manager of the year between Skinner and Ten Hag, who would I pick? Now, I'm going to ask Connor the same question, but I would go Skinner. And the reason I would go Skinner is because first trophy for the women. First major trophy for the women. Ten Hag finished 8th. You could argue that's the same in the league, but we've won like loads of FA Cups as a Man United football club, so I wouldn't be too fussed about that. Winning the first major trophy for the women, I think, just edges it. But let me be clear, it's like by a gnat's pube that he's made it through.
Absolutely no chance. I'm not a huge Ten Hag fan either, but
you're going Ten Hag?
Yes, because at least Ten Hag. I know Ten Hag said some questionable things in interviews this season, but Mark Skinner in his press conferences this season has just wound me up every single week, attacking the fans and talking about intelligence of the fans and that kind of thing. Like, it's just no. Like, this season, just no. Like, we've said on the Women's Channel, just keep him away from press conferences, because every week he's coming out with an absolute howler. And I don't know how the club are allowing it, to be honest. The media guy that's always sat next to him, I'm like, just give him a nudge, like tell him to stop talking, because he's digging himself a hole. And yeah, it is first major trophy, but no, not for me. I would still go Ten Hag, and that says a lot, considering I don't particularly like Ten Hag either. So yeah,
there we go. You got one vote each there. So there we are. And we're not playing that game, Dave. Yes, winning a trophy, that's winning the championship. That's like a charity shield. It was expected. She did it, nailed it, but it's not a major trophy. If we won the championship, we wouldn't be sitting there going, oh, aren't we great? We'll add that to our list of honours and be really proud of it. We'd just go, great, we got promoted. When you win the big fish, then we talk about it. But there we go. NT's agreeing with you, Connor. It's outrageous. I don't want to hear from Skinner either, but there we are. And that's it. Speaking of media men nudging people and telling them to shut up, that's what mine's doing. So I think it's probably a good time to end the show. It's been great to have you on, Jay. Thank you so much for giving up time on your Thursday evening. to come and join us over here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I've enjoyed it, man. The time flew by. That was very quick. I didn't realise it had been that long. It was good, man. It was a good chat.
Glad you enjoyed it. Can I also just say thank you as well for putting up with Connor the few times you've taken him up to Manchester. It's not easy. I had a full head of hair before I started working with Connor. My hair was just like his, and it just goes. But fair play. So thank you so much, like I say, for joining us. Usually we do a shout out and ask you to tell people where they can find you. If people don't know where to find you, then they've lost the plot. Stretford Paddock, get yourself in there and get them to 750k because they are well worth the subscription. And of course, Connor, thank you so much for joining us as well, mate. Pleasure for you. I say that. Thanks for popping in and seeing how we're getting on.
I was going to say, it was like I feel like it was like a review process, wasn't it? Like, how are you both doing? Like your appraisals, your yearly appraisal. That's what this was. Just seeing how you're getting on. But no, yeah, as I said at the start, you two are doing brilliant things on this channel. I know I've not been on it as much as been referenced in the comments earlier on and things like that, but that's because I don't need to. These two have been running it perfectly fine, without me on here. So I've not needed to get involved, which has been amazing because it leaves me to focus purely on the women's channel and build that one up as well. So yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. It's been good to talk about the men's team for a while because, as I said, I've not been on this season. So, or no, have I? Did I come on in October, November? I feel like I did. I've definitely been on this season thinking about it, but it's been a while. Definitely not this year. So, yeah, no, it's been good.
No, very good to have you in. You call it a review process. I've got to be honest, I've never been less worried about a review process in my life because I can't imagine you going, oh, God, yeah, we're going to sack him. But there we are. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe De Zerbi's coming after my job, and that's where the money came from. God only knows. And, of course, Dan, pleasure as ever to have you on here, sir. Thank you very much. Everybody else is in the chat. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really helps us. It's been a banger. I expect this to be our biggest show of the season, and that's what we wanted it to be. But maybe, just maybe, the show after the FA Cup final might just be a little bit bigger and a little bit better, especially if the boys come home with the trophy. Take care. See you all soon. Enjoy the cup final, and we'll see you soon. Peace out all.